Okay, we're live.
Good afternoon, all. I'd like to call to order the monthly meeting of the Cohoes IDA. Mr. Dugwire, if you call roll for, please.
Member Dion.
Here.
Member Tarlow.
Here.
Member Pascal.
Here.
Member Dudwire, present. Mr. Moore.
Here.
Member DeChiro.
Here.
Member Paradise.
Excused.
Excused.
Our first item is to approve the minutes from our October 2024 meeting. Were there any changes?
Nope.
Therefore, I will call for a motion for approval. Thank you, Ms. Tarlow. A second. Thank you, Mr. Dugwire. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Going on to the next item, and the reason we're here today is this is the approval of the resolution for our policy respecting the recapturing of project benefits. So as you know, there has been a lot of discussion over the past years, but more so has become more intense over the past few months regarding some of the projects that fall under the purview of the Cohoes IDA. And that namely being all the tenant buildings right now, which are becoming a stress to the city and to our resources. By moving forward, and to have remedies with some of the project builders or owners. I don't know if you want to add anything to it.
So the policy did not include originally for recapture, events of recapture around nuisance, which, as you recall, we've had hundreds of police calls to different properties with pilots on them. Could cover anything, noise, hot smell, whatever the nuisance is, it's drafted broad enough where it would give the IDA authority to not only come in and meet with the project owners and the original applicant, but also give them some leverage if they don't fix the problem to be able to pull the pilot and put them back on the tax roll. So the amendments are made as redlined in the policy attached, and it broadens the ability also for the IDA to bring with them the police department, fire department, codes, whoever, be the proper folks that would meet with the tax-paying pilot tax-paying company. So we needed to amend the policy to put all that in there. And then when you do your closing docs for each pilot, you might also begin to include additional language in those depending on a case-by-case basis. For example, on the Mosaic project, you probably would have wanted to put something in there regarding, you have to have the daycare of the school and you have to do X, Y, and Z, or else you'll no longer be eligible for a tax break. So this also gives us the authority to broaden the scope of our closing documents to put a little bit more teeth in there, so that if there's ever a problem, the IDA would have the authority to take action.
Any questions? Pretty straightforward.
Sounds good.
Been talking about it long enough. So with that attitude, call the vote, please.
Mr. Dion.
Or actually, I'm sorry. First, we need a motion for approval.
Yes.
Motion. Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Now, if you'll call.
Mr. Dion.
Yes.
Mr. Tarlow.
Yes.
Mr. Pascal.
Yes.
Mr. Dudwire. Yes. Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. DeChiro.
Yes.
Mr. Paradise.
With that, the motion carries. And at this point, I will ask for a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Moore. 3 minutes. That was nice. And an important piece of legislation passed. That was good. All right, moving right along. Where are you, Barbara?
You gotta open.
We have to open the LDC meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Well, somebody should.
No, right, so I'm opening the joint meeting,
Okay,
correct?
yes.
Okay, that's what I was saying with Barbara, if you're ready to go.
We're
We'll
ready to
call to
go.
order the joint meeting of the Cohoes LDC and the Cohoes IDA. Are all your members here?
Yeah, I have to call the roll.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Brott? Here. Mr. Hill? Barbara?
Yeah, I'm here.
Sandy?
Here.
Ed?
Here.
And I'm here. Okay, everyone's here.
And as we already know, there's a quorum present for the Cohoes IDA, so we can move forward. Today's purpose is a discussion of the fire sites. As we know, we have struggled a long time to get all the properties together. Now that we've had that, we have sent out 2 RFPs, which have come back with 0 results. But recently, we have received an offer on the property for a project. And both committees have to be in alignment with this. So we thought it'd be a good time to get everybody together and see where everybody feels. We want to bring Paul on at the beginning, or how do you want to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably a good idea to bring Paul up and just have him sort of talk us through the project and take questions. I think everyone has received.
I was going to say, everyone's on board, knows
Does everybody have
why it's
this?
here.
Do you want to put it on the easel or something? And Ben's in the waiting room or wherever you're.
Oh, is he? Okay. Okay, sure.
You wanted to try to put this up or not? Ben, can you hear us?
No, I couldn't get it to print, huh? I tried after the 3rd try, I can't print this. Oh, did you do it? You could do it.
Tuesday, I'm just about
Right attitude.
So, good evening. I really wasn't, this is my anniversary, so.
Uh-oh.
Steve said the meeting's tonight, I'm like, uh-oh. So I'll try to be brief, but my partner Ben and I are looking to redevelop that section on Lower Rimson known as the Burn site. It is a mixed-use project. Parking on the first floor, parking is going to be a challenge in that area, but Steve has said there might be availability of some properties that might be available through TNT, who we've yet to talk to. We wanted to get the temperature in the room first to see if this was actually it's a good proposal. Right now, it looks like we could get up to 55 units on that site with first floor parking, and which we have about 50% of on our own land. We haven't quite figured out where to put the retail, but there's 2 blocks of retail on the first floor, community space on the first floor, entrance on the first floor, and then apartments above, mostly 1 unit. We tried to design a project that would be in keeping with I'll just kind of get a little closer with this, with the neighborhood. There is some height restriction in that area, so we are going to be going a little higher to try to get the density, but we're trying to be respectful of the buildings and the surrounding neighborhood to see if it fits. And it looks like, you know, if we come up with a design like this, which is really like a multi-layered facade, you know, obviously not broken into separate buildings, but a facade that looks like it's separate row housing. So I don't know if everybody has this. We can certainly circulate it if you don't. But that's the bones of it. I did send around a pro forma based on, I think, 52 units, which, you know, it's going to need a lot of effort in the form of some brownfield money, some IDA participation, but it's a really exciting project. I think it'd be really transformative for that end of Remsen. This also ties in with phase 2 of the hotel, which we're hopefully getting off the ground in 25. So it would be really great if, you know, we could piggyback on that and finish hotel and then roll right into this, so.
For those of you who don't know, phase 2 of the hotel is apartments. It's added in 24.
We're hoping 26. Yeah.
26.
On White
apartments. Yeah, I'm going like
From
back.
White Street
along
back to the back of the
Main
hotel.
Street. out
Right.
to- yeah.
So that's finally off the ground. We're working through some issues with National Grid, who has something that's in the way that we're having a meeting tomorrow about, actually, so. I mean, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that I can, but that's the bones of what we have proposed. And then we have a block study, which is basically first floor here, and then the upper floors here. On this too, and I can leave this, I'll leave these for everybody to take a look at. Also, it helps to look at it in full scale.
So,
Paul, so the image on the bottom, that is this first floor split with whatever in the front and parking in
Correct,
the
so-
back of the first floor?
Yeah, entrance, fitness room. We are proposing townhomes for this one corner here, possibly even on the other side, but like a 2-floor townhome, a couple of those. Fitness studio. And then this is the retail space, which, upon further discussion, we thought it would be better if we, kind of split it in half and maybe put, balance either side of it. The design's very flexible right now. It's, nothing's in concrete. So, we could, with some input from the city, to figure out what the best use for the retail, or we could get more. We are a little challenged with accessing the rear portion of that, so we would probably come in off of Ontario to enter the parking. It seems to be the better of the two ways, which would put the retail probably over this. Or Columbia, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry.
So the first floor has parking
Second was
and,
Ontario, it'd be a long drive.
so that first floor has parking as well? And
Yeah, so behind this whole block is the parking.
so how many parking spaces
It was
total?
19, so 19 or 20?
19.
Yeah, so we're short on parking. Parking's gonna be an issue. But, there's a lot of apartment projects now that come in and don't have any parking at all, and, they're filling because more and more of the cities are getting away from, having all these cars for their tenants. A lot of people don't even own a car, so whether or not that's the case here, Cohoes, it certainly is in Troy. There's several developments in Troy that don't have really good parking at all. So parking is something that's challenging us, and we're gonna have to work closely with the city on it, try to figure out. There is on-street parking, there is public parking available within the 800-foot rule, and if there is the availability of maybe buying a couple of pieces from TNT to supplement.
Well, any breakdown on, you said there's, 52 units?
That's what we're proposing right now.
One bedroom, 2 bedroom?
Mostly ones,
One,
but I think there are twos on each floor.
would that be the townhouses?
Townhouse would count as those on the first, and then we have, I think, a 1-bedroom plus study and a 2-bedroom. So the 1-bedroom plus study, for like the working parent that has a child, kind of does it's a 2-bedroom, but this is basically 1-bedroom plus study.
what are you targeting about rents?
Not yet.
You can have the Ben, can you speak to the rent portion of this? I don't have the pro forma. If we can hear. Is he connected to any sound system?
Oh, it was muted, sorry. Ben, can you hear us?
Hey, guys. Yeah, I can talk about the rents a little bit. We're targeting something between 1,300 for a 1-bedroom, up to somewhere in the $1,500 to $1,600 range for a 2-bedroom. The pro forma we submitted to the city includes 48 residential units, but we're hoping to get a few extra with a little bit of redesign of the space and get up into the 51 to 52 range. And we've also modeled it with 22 parking spaces on the first floor.
How do those rents compare to your 2 other properties, right behind us and the hotel?
Yeah, they're market rate, just like we're getting a hotel in Canvas Street.
Yeah, the rents are in line with what we're seeing in the market right now. relative to the size of the apartments.
What's the square footage of the retail space that's available?
I'm sorry?
How much square feet in the retail space?
It's originally drawn at 3,000, which we thought might be a little excessive, because we have a lot of retail on Remsen already. So we're kind of playing around with that number. So we're thinking possibly 2 spaces of 1,000, 1,200 square foot each.
And any perspective ideas for that or vision for what that would look like, or based on the city's feedback?
And it's too preliminary. We really
Okay.
haven't spent a lot of time thinking about it. Just blocking out retail for it, so there is, obviously some amenity space that would serve the tenants would be, you know, what we would go after. I don't know if that's a cafe or if that's I don't know what that would look like. If that would be a barber shop, or if that would be a, you know, small cafe, or maybe some co-working space. That's something that we kicked around a little bit also.
The spaces to the right, you mentioned studio, whatever, are those for the public or for the residents?
This would all be for the residents, like the common area, the lounge and the workout room.
Other questions?
No.
We don't normally, but anybody from the public want to ask questions? Okay.
Just, you mentioned seeking other financial support, brownfield, whatever. Have you outlined grants and things you're going to be looking for? And
So I've been working with Steve on brownfield, and, you know, we would definitely be talking to Rod on, hopefully getting some support from the IDA in the form of a tax file.
would those grants require affordable housing included in the mix?
No, brownfield grants don't require that.
Okay.
Good question.
We'd also reach out to National Grid for Main Street, because there's a retail component.
In a perfect world, what would be your timeframe?
I think that really depends on how long it takes to get through that brownfield process.
It's a rolling application process.
It's a rolling application, so I don't know, do you allow a year for that to take place, or?
Knowing the city, yeah.
So it's
Can't
probably
shake
a
your
year.
head.
But, you know, that allows us, Ronnie, to, you know, finish design, get through planning, right? All that stuff runs concurrent with that application. So the work will be ongoing while we're, you know, working through that process. So, you know, in a perfect world, it will end with us getting, you know, the brownfield finished and, you know, have a, for lack of better, you know, ready to take, you know, permit.
What's your timeframe on the hotel? If it's 25?
That's really, it's spring 25 right now, unless we really hit a snag with National Grid.
And then how long are you looking for a hotel?
1 year, yeah, 10 months to 1 year.
We're required to get it done within 2 because of the DRI.
Right, yeah, so there's, the clock's ticking on that. I don't know what the official date was for,
It depends on whether contract is signed, I'm not sure.
okay. So we've already lost 3 or 4 months of it. Yeah.
Where else is parking going to take place there?
Well,
Because the
right now-
requirement in that area is for mixed use is 1.5 spaces. So I'm just curious where, because you said you have 22 spaces right now, where else is all the other parking going to take place?
Well, that's what we're working through. Yeah, Sharon, I don't have an answer for you on that. You know, that is definitely an issue. You did say there was availability, hopefully behind TNT had said that they would help the project get off the ground if their land was, you know, needed for parking. I'm hoping
Do you
they're
know how
agreeable
much
to a
space,
price.
do you know how
Who
much
knows?
space is there at TNT? Do you know how
I think
much?
that would provide the majority of it. Yeah, it would provide the majority of the balance.
Yeah, because it's 2 or 3 buildings there, right?
Yeah,
Isn't one of the apartment buildings?
Yeah.
One's looking,
and there's some, I think, you know, some vacant land too.
you know,
Approximately,
yeah. Any other questions for Paul?
It's an exciting project, you know, really, it's gonna take a lot of effort to get off the ground. It's, you know, everything's going so crazy with the construction costs and the cost of money and everything else that goes into it these days, so.
Well, just maybe 5 questions. You currently have, is it 71
We have Warehouse 71
Okay.
and the hotel.
In a hotel.
And we redeveloped that one section of Remsen that has the brewery in it, used to have the bakery shop, has the taco place. I'm not sure what the other building is. Barber shop.
He has,
And
the
again,
three of those were Las Avidas properties. He has those three.
Las Vegas.
Plus next door where the.
Yeah, Ed remembers those.
Yeah, I remember those.
And I'm just, when you heard the prior meeting, we were talking about recaptures or whatever, because we've had some less than favorable experiences with residential units that the IDA's been involved in. Let me say, absolutely, I'm familiar with the work you did at the Cohoes Hotel. It was spectacular. I saw it before and after, and
Oh, yeah.
and saw it a lot before
I
as
saw a
well.
lot before.
I mean,
It
wonderful
was pretty
job.
much a tear down when we took it over.
That was a mess.
We
That was a
saved
mess. And you did a wonderful job there, and I think 71 also. So this is your long-term business plan is residential, including residential?
Yeah, I mean, it's the most stable that we found. You know, we've been involved in both commercial and residential projects. And, you know, right now we have quite a few teed up. So we're also, Ben and I are also going to be involved with the music hall project. So, yeah, we have, and we're trying to move our business back down here. So we had an offer on a piece of land to jump the site, which was accepted, and come to find out during our phase 1 investigation, it's got some serious environmental issues. So it's
I'm looking for ways to help this.
possibly would tank that deal, but we probably should talk afterwards about that. Yeah.
Thank you.
But anyway, we were here for 25 years. We love Cohoes, and we're trying to get out of Albany and get back to Cohoes. So if anybody's got 3/4 of an acre to sell my brother, I would like to.
Yeah, it's not going there, Jeff. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, well done. So you're gonna hire him this year?
Talking about the one next to the music hall, Jacob's Rights. Jacob Rights' project next to the music hall.
Cohoes tobacco.
Purchase offer, they did a
Cohoes
phase 1.
tobacco building, you know that.
So,
Yep.
Steve?
I think so.
60 Remsen.
Enjoy your anniversary.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just,
Ben, you're welcome to stay with us, but I don't know if you have something definitely you would try to do. Yeah, you too.
Thank you. So at this point, I think we're just going to open it up to good old-fashioned open discussion and see, you know, we have, as the old saying goes, a bird in the hand, but I do know other people have opinions that, you know, maybe we want to see what else could be out there. So who wants to kick off?
Sounds like a great thing for the city. I mean, a bunch of one-bedroom apartments means working-class professionals to spend their money in Remsen Street. It just sounds like a good idea. Of course, parking is a problem, but it's something that I think we can solve as a city.
I'm not gonna spend the money.
Mind walking, there's actually a lot of parking on the other side where Main Street is, where Kramer's Armory is. That one whole side of Kramer's Armory, nobody ever parks there because they don't need it, and that's just right there. So I mean, they could even utilize that for parking.
I think that belongs to TNT. I think that
Alongside
all belongs to TNT.
Kramer's Armory?
It's cheap.
No, that's the street. She's talking about street parking. Just on Main Street.
Yeah.
No,
It's right there. They don't have to walk right around the corner practically. There's a lot of
TNT used to
parking.
think they owned the street, but they don't. so.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but no.
the west side of Main Street, there's probably
Yeah.
12 to 15 spots that are usually empty, so.
Well, I assume the parking will be eventually worked out, right? But
Yeah.
this,
I mean,
what we want,
as far as working, as Paul said, Paul and his brother have been in this city and,
Great.
for a long time. And, you know, we had 2 or 3 other projects that they really tried to take over, but we just couldn't put things together, because of, environmental issues on some of those properties. But You know, at least when I was working with him, always above board, very professional.
Oh, I agree.
He's done good stuff as far as a developer. You know, there's other developers obviously in the region. I know when I had Steve's position, at several other developers who had always promised they were going to come and do a project in Cohoes, and none of them ever did. So,
Yeah, I would say that Paul has been a good partner in the city of Cohoes.
They're gonna be able to get past the four-story?
It's a great idea.
Will they be able to get past the four-story? Is there a restriction there?
That's over my pay grade. Talk to
There's
him or,
lots of
Sharon.
Yeah.
We have to
That's
come
what
for
it's-
zoning for that, and also for the apartment count also, because there's over 10 units.
Yeah.
So you would have to get a few variances through zoning.
But in
I
Ramsey
think
Street,
a
there's
four-story
several
structure doesn't
four-story
look like
buildings.
that.
I'm sorry?
A 4 stories are gonna look like that.
I disagree with you on that. I think that there are a lot of 4-story buildings on Remsen Street that look great.
The first thing you're gonna see when you come up that street is a 4-story building blocking out the sun. I'd like to see it.
Might be good, because I can't.
yeah, I would, yeah.
Well,
So you're
mine
blocking
just
the
like
sun,
that.
would be good, 'cause
Yeah.
it's- but there are, because I checked last night, there is actually 7 buildings on Remsen Street that are at least, that are four stories. Now, of course, that includes the music hall,
And
which is.
the Masonic
you know,
Temple
which is
and-
obviously, but all the way along, there is a number of other 4-story buildings. I mean, this would kind of anchor, you'd have one good-sized unit in the middle of the street, and then the Cohoes place, which is where the old theater was, that's a 4-story building. And then when you get, then in the next block, you got the Masonic Temple, and then when you got down at this end, you would have, you know, the music hall building. So it would kind of, you know, be intertwined. I don't think it's that far out of what the current, you know, view shed is on Remsen Street, so.
Well, it's the good and the bad. I mean, certainly Paul has a reputation for doing
Yeah.
excellent work, and we want to encourage him to continue participating in the city. At the same time, 2 major concerns. One, I don't really feel that residential apartments are a major economic boost for the city, that the state has been pushing since the 1990s, smart growth and these ideas that you put apartments upstairs and all those people are going to turn around the business climate. That hasn't worked anywhere. And I don't really buy that it's going to turn around the economic situation in the city of Cohoes. So as an economic development project, I'm not crazy about the residential that the city has been doing in recent decades. And what I think are more than excessive pilots, 30-year pilots. I don't think these things are an economic benefit. And also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe retail is eligible for IDA.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that, okay.
It's a non-issue if you don't like the project, but I was just writing notes on that.
The parking does concern me because I believe that previously the city has done exemptions and has surcharged the municipal parking, and the municipal parking is really oversubscribed right now. And as I drive down Remsen Street right now, I typically see about 1 space available and 12 cars parked on the fire sites. So there's currently a deficit of 11 in my simple math mind. So having another 30 apartments without a place to park, I don't think that's going to help the downtown and the business climate. So I think parking is a major issue. In general, I don't think these are economic development boosts. At the same time, something is better than nothing, but we also, at one of our meetings, one of our members asked about the marketing we have currently done for the sites, and pretty much the answer is we haven't. And so, I don't want to discount Paul's proposal. I think it's wonderful. I think there are some things that would have to be worked out. I'm not crazy about exemptions. The codes and the comprehensive plan and these things were developed for a purpose. So I'm not crazy about exemptions. And I do think we don't want to rush into this. And I think it's an example is the Golden Quest sites. We waited a long time, but something wonderful finally came along that I think long-term is going to benefit the city. So, you know, I wish Paul had a different site to do this project, but I'm not sure that that's the right thing for Remsen Street.
What would you think would be a good project for that site?
I think what we need on Remsen Street is attractions. Now, we talk about putting people upstairs because that's going to make a difference. There's about 18,150 people in the city of Cohoes alone. And if 18,000 people aren't making Remsen Street work, another 50 apartments isn't going to change anything either. So I don't have an answer for what would be an attraction. But I believe what Remsen Street needs is parking somewhere. And as Steve has mentioned, backlot parking and whatever. So you can do the parking behind the main street, that's fine. But I think you have to have parking, people have a place to park. And I think we need attraction, something that the people in Cohoes are going to utilize. I just feel we've gone overboard with residential. And we need attractions, we need business.
I don't want to get too far ahead, but I heard him say something about environmental on the possible junta sites.
Correct. Which were.
If that falls through, if that don't happen, I'd rather see him put them 20 jobs up here along with some of his apartments. Because that's gonna, if that falls
So
through.
for those that are unaware, there's an offer on the table that we've been working with Paul on regarding moving his entire corporation down to the Junta property and building corporate headquarters. My only negative with it, and I guess fencing and all those things, if something like that came about, then it's the heavy equipment. I think he'd have to, that's the only thing I don't like.
He's got pickup trucks and.
Right, but do you fence it all in on the backside? It's not an issue, I don't know.
I'm not sure if that's gonna be, you know, Remsen Street has completely changed and, I came to work, 20 years ago, I came to work for the city of Cohoes. And the first 10 years, we spent a lot of time working with developers on developing commercial space. In 122 Remsen Street, and the old Masonic Temple, upstairs in the buildings where the first block, like what we always call the Adams block, 103, 109 Remsen Street. And at one point, we had over 350 office jobs that were on Remsen Street. So we had a lot of people coming in during the day. What happened was when all of a sudden the change in the governor, and they decided at that time there was not a lot of office space available, especially in Colony and especially in downtown Albany. When they decided to change and move everybody back to, like, you know, a lot of people don't realize it, but the Corning Tower had gotten to the point where it was almost empty. And so the government, the state government, refurbished those buildings, moved everybody out of the cities, Cohoes, Troy, Waterville, moved all those spaces down there. When they did, those other spaces, all of a sudden there was a glut, and everybody pulled all the commercial space out of Cohoes. And now, especially with Danny O, who has purchased a number of those buildings, all that commercial back office space has all now been redeveloped into apartments. And he's continuing to do that. So it is successful. I don't know what kind of other types of businesses or attractions could come to downtown Cohoes. I know there's a handful of us who've been trying to build up the arts. We've had some success with that, and we've done some events with the arts. The biggest draw still seems to be is the Cohoes Music Hall. And so, And that's when you'll see a lack of parking, because and then Rodney has been gracious enough to let different groups use his lot and also to make some money on that. Of course, those are usually, it doesn't fill up until the last 5 minutes. When all of a sudden nobody can find a spot, they go running across the street, and that's when the
Supply and demand
all
has
of
made this country
nonprofits
what it
are
is
trying to
today.
give everybody buy a ticket to go across the street. But last Friday night at 7 o'clock, my wife and I, at 5 o'clock, my wife and I went into Smith's, and they said, there's a 2.5 hour wait. And we said, what? What's going on? I said, 7:30, there's a show. There's a Woodstock reunion show or something so those attractions are bringing people in. And, but I do also know that there is the people that are living there, because I've run into some of them, they then walk down the street, they go to the music hall, then they come out. Now, most of them all go because by the time the show's over, usually the only place that pretty much is open is Smith. So a lot of them go back there for a drink afterwards. But, so I think there is still, some demand. I was shocked too. I started looking because I hadn't paid much attention.
Yeah.
And I went out onto the site and looking at the different buildings and the rents that are, between, and, of course, then outside of Lexington Hills and Harmony lofts outside of there, those are even higher. But just down on Remsen Street, $1,200-$1,500 is the going rate for.
And the demand is high. You asked me about this on the email thread, and so I can pass around this on the occupancy of the storefronts. This runs. It doesn't have to go all the way around the table to get one. But so the storefronts are coming around right now. But while those are coming around, I'll say on the apartment front, obviously there are a lot of small landlords on Remsen Street, so those would be very hard to quantify. But I talked to Paul Bonaquisti, I talked to Danny O from Capital Companies, and I talked to Terry from Gladue Properties. They own basically almost the entire Adams block, and all of them reported a 100% occupancy rate. So with these, with the rents we're talking about, it sounds like a lot to me too, but they have waiting lists to get into these places. So there is definitely demand for apartments. As far as, having never seen apartments as a driver of economic development, I would say I would look to cities around us who have had success recently, right? So when you look at Schenectady, I was recently at a conference, and some of the people who were early and instrumental in Metroplex talking about how adding those apartments early on in the process and redeveloping those second and third floor unused spaces into apartments to add people and add life into the downtown was one of the key elements to their success in Schenectady for Metroplex. So I would say respectfully, I disagree with the premise that adding apartments and adding people into the downtown by adding beds does not benefit economic development. I think it does.
Steve, at the last meeting, I had brought up Schenectady twice as an example, right? Like an exemplar scale. It's a larger scale, but you could scale it to the city of Cohoes. The differences with Schenectady is they have Rivers Casino, then they have Proctor's, they have Bowtie Cinema. So they have these commercial spaces that do draw people in. Having sat on the DRI, and let me just back up and say Bonaquisti has created eloquent elevations of the exterior, I think, in terms of the charge of setting that block up to look historic and relevant and fit the aesthetic of what our buildings look like. Nailed it, like did a great job. So this is not a Bonaquisti statement. This is more of just a logistics statement. The DRI is going to have profound impact if it all goes through and everything comes through the months and months of planning that I sat on that, to renovate and create multiple additional residential spaces and apartments throughout the downtown, which we all agreed was a good thing and a necessary thing, to your point. But those are going to need parking spaces and accommodations for those people to live comfortably and find a spot. So I think your parking is really is one of the pivotal points. And when you talk to sometimes people from the city, they'll say parking's not a problem. parking is a problem, and parking has to be a solution, because you might draw those people there temporarily, but if they can't park anywhere,
Sure.
you know, they're going to look elsewhere for that. There's also some properties around that area that I wonder if anybody's spoken to some of those owners to say, would you be interested in selling for parking space? Because they're not pretty. I mean, they need to maybe move on, you know, I mean, and I think they could be prime property areas to solve the dilemma with this. But my other big takeaway is that residential space, and I know you passed this along, but what do we have that's unique, that's a draw? And as the educator on the board, you know, I would be remiss not to say something about, there's nowhere for kids to go in the community. Where do you go if you don't have a parent to take you somewhere, or if you're living in poverty and walking is the only way you're going to get there? We're a walking district. We have no school buses. Kids don't have any way to get around the community. Ben Williams is doing great with the Connect Center. I met with him earlier. I meet with him all the time, and we do as much brainstorming as we can from school to that. But a bulk of our kids live in the downtown, you know, area. So I would love to, you know, look at that retail space, and maybe Paul, and I know he said it's too early, but to talk about a YMCA or something that could, I mean, I think we just have a lot of little boutique shops.
Sure. Yeah.
You can only have so many arts and crafts and boutique shops, and then you get, you know, you see these things, oh, we're going out of business, thanks for your support. But if there was something unique to that density, and the parking could be resolved by looking at surrounding areas that are dilapidated and I think take away from the excitement of a project like this.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. And hey, I'm going to ask you to correct me if I'm wrong, so please hit me if I'm wrong. But I think that if we were to move forward with the project, it would all be pending government approvals, which means that it would need to get through like the planning and zoning boards. And if they didn't get through the planning and zoning boards, which would mean that they didn't properly address the parking issues in order to get through planning, then that would cause the project to revert, right?
Historically, the planning board has not done a very good job on the parking as far as I'm concerned. So I'm not going to rely on the planning board to make decisions for us. I'm sorry.
Do we know, is DRI funds headed towards this?
No, this is this is not a DRI project.
Okay.
And you're right, Laura, there are a lot of DRI projects coming along. I just want to point out that this is happening at 230 Remsen Street is the address of this one.
Yep.
The DRI project that is geographically closest to this one is 139 Remsen Street. So we're talking, there's quite some distance from the last DRI project to this one, as far as like if we're thinking about how much can spend like on-street parking absorb.
Is the Armory still part of the DRI project?
No.
And that's, again, you know, they're long-term, you know, and they haven't really shared it with a lot, but they're hoping to, once the two of them finish, that they've been at it for 10 years now, but I think some of the things that they want to do in there would provide some activities and things for children.
And that was the other thing that I wanted to point out, was maybe there is an opportunity to do something here with Paul to the end that you're speaking of. But I also just want to bring back up that the Cohoes Community Center is still underway with the Albany County. And so we expect to see that operating as a community center again.
But they have we received anything as far as what other than we know they did get approval for the swims,
they got
money to do on the pool, but I haven't seen anything else saying as to what other type of activity, you know, basically everything's talked about the pool, but.
Yeah, they are still working on the real estate transaction, last I knew, which was fairly recently. They're still just working on completing the real estate transaction, but I'm told that they are fully committed to doing it. Just trying to get all the wrinkles ironed out on that. So you know how those real estate transactions can be.
Back to the Armory, should the Armory take off the parking spaces on street that you cited on Main Street, they would certainly be using those as well.
Well, they have, they do have their own.
Tiny parking lot. So if that ever did take off the size of that building, you remember, they used to have parking behind them, alongside of them, all over the place, and that wasn't enough. Again, I think this is an interesting proposal. I, in my heart of hearts, wish there was an attraction some kind of activity that would benefit the people of Cohoes, that they would want to go to on Remsen Street. I wish I knew what that was. So, I mean, in my own mind, I'm thinking, number one, parking has to be addressed. But I'm sorry, I missed that.
She said, why you put in a casino? I don't think that.
They seem to be going up every other block these days.
It's a
Well,
drive.
he wanted to, he kept checking to see if the Indians had any, you know, if the Colony Mills could have been turned back to the Indians.
Hey,
and then
back
we could
then,
put a casino in there. So,
Back then, that would have been good.
yeah.
So, this project is primarily residential, and on Remsen Street, I wish we had something that was primarily, activity-based for people of Cohoes. But we don't have that yet. I think the concept of working with this to see if parking can be addressed, the city code issues can be addressed, and at the same time, marketing to see if there is something else that could either be a part of Paul's project or something independent that was an attraction, activities, something to enliven Remsen Street. Like you say, the music hall seems to be one of the best things happening in town right now. And, you know, there may be more.
Ben Williams asked me today, what are the two ways we engage parents the most? And the answer is through the arts and through athletics. We get the most parents at our schools, because I'm currently the community center at Cohoes, so I know this. You know, if you have a big sporting event, you get tons and of people to that sporting event. If you have a theatrical performance, a drama production, you get tons and tons of people, right? A dance recital, you get tons of people. So I don't know what that looks like either. I guess I'm just thinking long-term in 40, 50 years when, you know, when we're not sitting on these boards anymore, did we do something transformative for downtown Cohoes? Did we do something that our future generations will be like, that was an amazing project? This is a simple answer, right? And it's the only option we have right now. So it's a fully saturated offer, right? There's nothing else to compare it to. So I think it's like, looks great. He's a great guy. He runs a great business. All the drawings look great. Is it transformative? I don't know. From an empty lot.
Yeah.
I'm talking about after the DRI has all that work's been done. Evaluation of the city has been done deeper, right? In marketing. Right now, it's the only thing we have. So, I mean, yeah, great. It's better than a lot for sure, without a doubt. And that's sat there. I don't know. That's my question, is I'm looking at it as like this one in a lifetime opportunity to transform Remsen Street. But to Ralph's point, what does that transformation look like? And what is the right business model to get in down there? Because more housing will be good, and if it's working class people, we'll take working class people. We like those people in Cohoes. We need more of those people. But right now, if it's all we've got, then maybe our hands are tied to really be, because beggars can't be choosers. And
Well,
that's
like
where
you
we
say,
are.
The only
this-
thing that concerns me with residential is I think Paul had asked for some relief from the IDA.
Go ahead.
No,
I
I'm
heard that
done.
too.
I'm done.
The missing piece, and this is just informational, and I think it's important to understand the statutory framework of IDAs. Generally speaking, it's to create jobs. So if you're gonna sell a property, and not every IDA necessarily buys property the way that we have, but it can be a useful tool. And Paul had mentioned on this project, he wants a pilot. I gotta tell you, it's gonna be an uphill battle on a housing project for a pilot, number one, because you're not creating jobs. It's not an economic stimulus, and they're not gonna really be able to report any beyond construction, maybe. Number two, you can't get a pilot on retail or commercial portion of the building. So that's also gonna eat into his costs, right? So that is something we would have to talk about later, and I didn't necessarily want to get into it, but if he's heavily relying on that, and the IDA is a property owner here. So when we're reviewed by the ABO, the comptroller's office, et cetera, you know, what kind of project was this? And when, even the LDC, if we were to do a project that's a negotiated sale like this, you have to serve notice on the ABO. And they're gonna look at this transaction, because normally you would have to put it out to bid. And there's certain circumstances where you don't have to, but you have to serve the notice and all of that. So there's some limitations on this type of project, and if it's heavily relied on by a pilot, and we've been in this IDA has been in that position before, where a project's moving forward, but then the pilot doesn't go through for whatever reason, you have an issue there. So normally when we look at pilots, we require a cost benefit analysis. What's the benefit of the pilot if we do it, the benefit to the community? And the cost to build right now is extremely high. So I don't know dollar for dollar, with no jobs really being created, no necessary like retail or commercial tenants that you know of that's gonna generate any real, economic activity, on Remsen Street. I don't know how you could approve a pilot based upon that for this particular project as it stands right now. Not only that, the real estate broker in me says, everything that's being done is conversion to residential. So, the square foot cost to build commercial space is high, and you couldn't rent it to cover that at a rent here in Cohoes that would make the project work. That's why nobody's coming forward to build commercial. It's at least mixed, right, with a performing building. So, I think that's the legal backdrop, and in this particular project, it's probably, a pilot would be tricky, and there's nothing we could do about the retail commercial portion, that's out. So it would only be the housing that's left that you could use for the tax abatement portion of it. And would that be enough? I mean, that's a numbers game, you gotta look at that. So, the tough part is, I don't know if you're gonna get a commercial retail project that works there either. So there's this, but the pilot's gonna be tough on this one.
Yeah.
And we've done housing before, and it's not, like, we're in a bind because of
We're trying to get out of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
Well, and
what
the
our
promises
resolution
to the
is.
economic impact of job creation are what we're finding to be that the companies aren't following through on.
Right.
When we do site visits and they propose they're gonna have 20 full-time employees and 5 businesses renting from them, and you go there and there's one front desk lady that's very kind, and there's a vacant space with
And by
no
law,
workers.
we
And
have
that's happened at multiple spaces in which we have pilots on, hence what we did at the beginning of the meeting
That's why
today.
we did that today.
Because the benefit to the city, the city's sitting here open for business, wanting to do these things. What's the city benefiting from it with a very tight tax base as it is, very little money to fix up things that need to be fixed up, including this amazing building that we're in right now, right? So I just feel like if there were and maybe if he knows that is not an opportunity, may not be an opportunity for him, it may change the scale or the vision of the property and the project.
Well, by law, we would have to recapture the benefits, which is why we amended the policy. If they're not meeting
The requirements, right?
Right.
We would have to. If Paul says, I can build it with half a pilot, or I can build it without it.
Yeah.
Then, that really then pushes that over here, and then the IDA has to say, well, does this project support the creation of, it's the same analysis. We could get creative there, but housing, I think you're in a catch-22 here, and I just don't know.
Especially with market rate housing.
It's the economy right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know that you'd be having the same discussion if it was cheaper to build. And Paul's got to show, the legal analysis is, but for this pilot, I can't build this project. He's probably going to get there fairly easy because the cost of construction is so high. But
Yeah, so the 5 million, so it'd be prevailing wage on top of it. So
yeah,
there's an extra
yeah. I mean,
30% down the drain.
Yeah, and it's not so much like I have no opinion on the project, but it's just the legal framework and what we've got to be able, the IDA's restrictions, I guess. LDC really doesn't have as much, but it's still a negotiated sale for all of you, and the ABO is going to look at that too, because you're involved in it.
I just want to say, we're at an interesting time in Remsen Street, and I kind of want to look at COVID. So we had a great surge just before COVID of restaurants opening, bars, what have you. There was real entrepreneurship taking place in Remsen Street. COVID hit, the music hall was shut down. Then we've kind of had these stagnant 2 or 3 years. Over that period of time, I'm quite focused on the music hall. I study the ticket sales more than the average person should ever have to do. It is amazing to me that is the draw. There's no doubt about it. But there has been this almost confluence of, as we had all these bars and restaurants, the music hall could do 2 shows a month. Now they're doing 18 shows a month. That is literally drawing in all these people. But I don't know if the two have ever met together. 5, 6, 7 different bars on Remsen Street, music hall being busy Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday matinees. I see it in the parking lot. Half the people that come in, where can I go? Where do I go for a drink? Where do I go that? So to what you're saying, I would love to see more focus, more economic development of almost getting where we were, where we had a bunch of variety of different bars and restaurants. And you know what? Remsen Street became that cool little street of bars and restaurants because we have the attraction. The numbers Owen is pulling right now is stunning. What I saw this year with the Park Playhouse in August, we sold out the parking lot every night for 22 shows. It was exhausting. I got to be honest. I wasn't expecting that. That's really drawing people into the community. Carolyn and I, as we've become more empty nesters, we've been going around to a lot of little different towns and cities. And the one thing I noticed is they have cute things or this and that, but they don't have a music hall. So I'm not giving an answer one way or the other, but I think we have to look at it at a greater period of time. We were going in the right direction, but then the timelines never met up. That's my one fear of saying, let's go ahead with this project, boom, lock it up, we're all good. The point of the bakery is a valid point. It has to be taken into consideration. Sometimes, as Tom Petty would say, the waiting is the hardest part. But a lot of times it pays off. On the other hand, more bodies, we do have the attraction. So my point is we have a real quandary here. What to do.
And I think, Ralph, you say what would bring the people in the community down here. I think we can't look at what we need to do with the people in the community. I think to Rod's point, we have to look at what do we need to do to bring people from outside the community into downtown? Right. Because if you live in the community without really understanding what the demographics are of the people, I go to work, I leave the city going the other way. You can't come in here in the morning and get a cup of coffee on downtown.
Literally.
People, they go right around the downtown to get to where they're going. So, I went to some at the music hall, and there were 3 people that I worked with that were there, and all they did is talk about, oh, we went to this one for dinner, we went here. So I think that's really where our focus should be on what we need to do to drive people to come in.
90% of the cars we park are from out of Cohoes, and they are generally, as you're saying, they're excited. They are so excited to go to the Coast Music Hall for the first time. They can't wait to tell you all
And we
about
were
it.
talking about Schenectady. We're going to Schenectady.
Yeah.
So how do you get those people to come to Cohoes
Correct.
to patron our shops and our businesses?
We have that figured out. Now it's, how do we get them
So
on
we
Remsen
have
Street?
that check.
Right.
My own business experience is we couldn't survive on just the people from Cohoes.
Right.
We draw from a larger area. And then the last thing I'll say, my good friend Ed always used to introduce me as the only guy who knew to talk more than him.
And now we have you both on board.
Well, I've used the example with the IDA before. I have a good friend on LDC. And they use the LDC to come up with a creative way to solve a problem. And I guess I'm a dreamer, and I think we have property, we have the LDC, we have the IDA. Damn it, can't we come up with something transformative? This is a good, again, Paul does great work. I think that's a great project, but it's not transformative for Remsen Street. And I'm just not ready to give up the ghost yet. And maybe we need to take a few months, detail it and do a more aggressive, look and talk to realtors, talk to planners and see what could work there that is an economic development IDA fundable project. Because again, we both own the property and we're in a position to help. And then we have the LDC that's in a position to help. So to me, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and I want to make sure we've explored it thoroughly before we say, yep, this is it.
Even if we all sat here and agreed that we all want to move forward with this tomorrow, it sounds like, to Kate's point, there's legalese that will jam that up along the way. So it may not get legs or become viable, even if we all loved it to pieces, because of the
So you do
regulations.
hear me.
I listen to you, Kate. I do listen to you.
And we've been down this path before, and if you forget, I've had 4 IDA boards. That's how long I've been here, right? And there's a pattern here. And so I'm always out here saying, this is a great discussion, but, just for information purposes, there's some other roadblocks potentially. And, I think for transparency, you should know that, and it's part of your analysis. I mean, I'm just a kid from Albany, but I gotta tell you, my grandparents thought Cohoes was a magical place. And school children came here to the music hall, and Cohoes Manufacturer was here, and every time we went back to school, they drag us over here, and it was like this, oh, Cohoes, and then,
Now it's
it's gone. But it's gone, but it doesn't mean it can't be something better and different.
I literally had 2 people this weekend who came to Cohoes for the first time. One was for Cheryl, one was for Smith. And again, it's almost like, really? You're that excited?
We would go to Smith's after the basketball.
Yeah.
The other thing, and I think when that email I sent you too, is to, and it was not just the DRI committee, but we have several other studies that have been done within the last 10 years where we've done community workshops where people from around the community, and they would put down what some of their ideas and rank them, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I don't know if you've got anything in the files where we might be able to see some of the things that people thought were transformational type things for the downtown area. So
The problem is the ideas are always free.
It's
the developers who write the checks.
I can pull that information. It might look more like a list of fast food restaurants than you might like it to look like. But I can pull that information.
Where's Mike's downstairs? He for years. He
Well,
wanted
no
us to get a
pilot,
taco. He wanted us to get a taco.
tax
He kept saying to John and I, "You gotta get a Taco Bell in Colorado." That's what we need here. So.
There's hurdles to whatever we're gonna do.
Of course.
There's always gonna be things that are in our way, but my thing right now is that we have a proposal here that could help, right? Or we could do nothing and not help.
So can I, do you mind? Okay. It sounds like there are a couple of people who very much don't like the project. I think that most people are sort of on the fence, and there are some people who very much like the project.
I don't think anybody doesn't like the project. Let's not put those words in anybody's mouth. Especially not my mouth.
I didn't say any names, Ralph. I didn't say any names. I'm just trying to
tell you.
I'm just trying to summarize what I've heard.
He's just a guy who hopes and dreams.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Fair enough. But what it sounds like to me is that no matter what we do, it is going to take a period of at least a few months for Kate to be able to tell us whether or not it is doable at all to move forward with a pilot on that project anyway. So what do we think about the? She just nodded her head. So, but
do you already know the answer?
Generally, I make things work when you ask me to make things work to the extent we can. I mean,
my question is like,
This is stretch.
it's not looking good.
This is stretch.
So my question here is, while Kate and maybe because the LDC has nothing to do with pilots, so maybe while Kate and the IDA folks identify whether a pilot is workable that would be needed, is it possible to continue down this path where we don't throw this baby out with the bathwater, right? But we also do some marketing as was raised, and that way. In a few months, when ideally, hopefully, Kate says we can or cannot do something here on the pilot side that will or will not make the project work, at that stage, we will also be able to say, okay, and we tried marketing for 3 months or 4 months or whatever it may be, and it either came up with this great project and great idea, or we have tried again and still do not have another viable idea.
I think that's a good idea, Steve. We got somebody now that's definitely interested. So we got that ace in the hole. You got a guy
Wouldn't that
that's
make
different. Let's go look, see what else is out there.
Just,
Yeah, and he's gonna be doing as he said, he hopes in the spring to start
We
phase
are,
two.
can I just say we are over time also? I just want
Yes.
to, yeah.
Yeah, but in the spring, if he's starting that project, and he said, so if we, over the next few months, see if we can
Yeah.
work on if there's anything else, and if, especially, if we can't come up and offer him something to make the numbers work, he won't
And then
be
we
able to
haven't
go
waited
forward.
another
But
4 or
then-
5 months to do
Right.
nothing,
Is that a viable
right?
solution?
We've got some action going in the
Is that a
background.
viable solution?
I
think
mean,
so.
I think a meeting with Paul to find out if he doesn't have, if he's not gonna get
Yeah.
what he wants, that, is it off the table and we need to move forward?
Well, right out of the gate, we can't do the retail commercial, so that is
Right.
moving on us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's
So-
just, and is that number fail it for him right there?
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
small
right,
portion of that
Yeah.
project.
I'm nervous about leaving it too open though. I would say, if we want to do marketing for a couple months, we should put a timeline on it. Say
Yeah, I
4
agree.
months from now, we're gonna meet
Yeah.
again and go over all this.
Yeah.
Not-
So you can,
Okay.
You figure
Well, I
by the
mean,
time
it's-
that gets going, it will probably be close to the holiday season. So
Right, the
maybe
time
it's
of
like
year
the
is
first
actually
quarter
quite
of the
bad.
fiscal
Right.
year, by the end of the first quarter of the fiscal year, by end of March, if we haven't had anything, then it doesn't look very good. There's no prospects.
Right.
Well, how can we make this work for him so we have something going in those vacant lots?
And not to mention, Paul may come up with some
And he may
uses
alter his project
that come
to,
in.
to retrofit it into what needs to happen.
So do you want to put out like an RFP or a request for a realtor, or like, what do you want to do? Or are you just gonna hope something comes up? I mean, do you want to, you said you're gonna get aggressive, what does that mean?
And who,
Amount, what does it
and who will
mean?
do it?
Ralph or Mom?
Both. Come on.
But no,
Right,
I
but
think
that's
we need to
another
get a
month.
few people together that can talk about who they know and who might be able to help, and see if we need another RFP.
Aren't there firms that do this? Aren't there marketing and real estate
Yeah.
acquisition firms
I
that do
think if
this
we
full
reach out
time?
to a couple commercial real estate
Yeah.
firms,
Yeah.
if we do a couple
You
instead
have
of
to follow
singular
your
one.
procurement policy, that's
I'm
all I'm
also-
saying.
I'm also a fan of nominating the one who wasn't here, so Peter wasn't here today, so. So we can charge Peter with, doing some things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we'll talk to Pete and get him on it. and,
For anybody who knows anybody, call your friends who are commercial real estate agents, whoever you know, any developers you might have in the back pocket,
Steve will be
probably a good
involved.
time to reach out to them.
So can we call another co-development committee
Yeah.
to address this then? Maybe that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
When?
Anybody who wants to come can.
Yeah, but you.
Like next month, you're saying, in a
I
few
think
weeks,
like sooner than that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
beginning
next
of
week.
December?
yeah,
maybe?
next week is fine. I'm fine
Well,
with
no,
doing it
it
next
is,
week.
because
Yeah,
then you're in Thanksgiving the week after.
Yeah. I'm fine with doing it next week. Oh, well, then I'm fine with doing it the following week.
Well, trade it.
A week from Thursday? No,
that's a bit big.
What time?
What time does the game go?
I don't know.
Here next week, so, okay, so how about the week of the 25th? Obviously not the 28th, but
Yeah, it's tight. but
Monday or
tell me what you
Tuesday?
wanna do.
how about Monday or Tuesday, the 25th or the
What time?
26th? 4:30?
25th works.
25th works?
Monday?
How about Monday, the 25th at 4:30?
Sure.
Done, okay. Co-development for the purpose of getting the ROP out on marketing. And then in the meantime, the IDA will talk to Paul about the potential hurdles having to do with the pilot and see if that is something that might be able to be addressed.
4:30 again, Steve?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
That way we're running on two tracks at the same time.
I like
Okay.
25th at 4:30.
Well, very good.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for your
Thank
time
you.
today.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
discussion.
you.
Yeah, close anything?
Motion to adjourn?
Oh, yeah, hello.
Second.
Ed and Ralph.
Hold on, LDC, motion to adjourn.
And now, team back to, the band's back together.
Good catch, Kay.
Right?